Hello, Ray here. I'm down in my basement, as you can see. All this basement around me. But anyway, I'm gonna brew a beer. Thought I'd record it. Anyway, it's gonna be a beer, and the grain bill is right there. Hopefully you can see it. But it's a beer that I made a few months ago, and it came out really good. So I want to see if I can do it again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my water. This is my homemade mash tun. Let me show it to you. As you can see, I took this plumbing fixture that you would hook up your toilet to, or your faucet from the water source, you know, to the fixtures, and inside is this plastic thing. So when you cut off this end, right here, you know, all you got to do is take a pair of pliers and pull that plastic thing out, and then you just slip it on there, and then you have a filter for your mash to go through, and it's just a regular cooler. I took the front of it off and I just put in one of them ball valves right there, and then put that filter on. Okay, this is my Spidell fermenter. As you can see, I do have a brew in there right now. It's this brew that I made a couple weeks ago. I'm going to bottle it today as I'm boiling my beer that I'm going to try to copy. That's this clone 4 here. And notice I don't name my beers. I'll give them a name when they're perfected, but now I know probably most of you already know or probably already use the same yeast over and over. On the batch that I just showed you in the Spidell fermenter that I'm going to be bottling today as I'm brewing my beer, you know, that's the second time around for that yeast. When I take the wort out to put in the bottles, and then what I do is I smell the yeast. If the yeast doesn't smell bad, then I use it again. Simple as that. If it starts getting mutated too much and it's getting these off flavors or off smells, then I dump it, and I have another batch in the refrigerator that I've used before also. This saves a lot on yeast, believe it or not, when yeast is costing, you know, when the dry yeast $3 or $4 a pack, and you get the liquid yeast, which, you know, can run up to, you know, $5, $6, $7, $8 just for a vial of it, you know, and then you got to go through the process of, you know, a starter yeast, and, you know, it's just a pain in the yin yang. So once I get a yeast going, and I have, you know, basically a starter yeast, you know, from using it, you know, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. But the problem with that is most of you experienced brewers know, you know, it tends to mutate it. You know, it gets too mutated, and just, you know, after growing and growing and going through several batches, and it's picking up different flavors here and there, sooner or later it's going to start not smelling too good. So you don't want to use something that don't smell too good. Obviously. Alright, here we go with the brewing. So I'm going to be filling this strike water right now that I'm putting in here to about 7.5 gallons, which comes up to about, you know, the top of this nipple right here. And put the strike water at about 167 degrees. Which will set my grains at about 153 or 154 degrees to mash in, which it gives me a nice head. It's a malty head. It's got a lot of body to it, and you can actually enjoy the malt in the head as you're drinking the liquid beer, which has the roasted barley in it, which you can taste the chocolatey flavor from the brown malts and everything. It's really a tasty beer. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I got my temperature up to 168.2 or so. I added a little bit of a little bit of temperature because I didn't take into consideration the temperature of my mash tun. I took in consideration the temperature of my grains, but not the mash tun. So we'll see what the temperature of the mash is when I'm done. I have my strike water and the mash tun. Be sure your valve is closed, people, before you do this. I did it before without it being closed and didn't find out till I was halfway done. Anyway, there's my grains. I'm going to start putting them in. Okay, so I'm going to try to do this and show you. I pour the grains in really slow like that. And then I mix them in with my spoon so we don't get any clumps in there. Okay, we don't want a big clumpy thing, okay? So I'm going to continue doing this and I'll come back when I'm done. Well, as you can see, I finally got all my grains in there. So it looks like a bunch of oatmeal. Stirring it. Okay. Now I want to check the temperature to see what the grains are, what the temperature is. So we can see here. Let's see, we got 124. I like to move it around a little bit. 140, 148, 49, 150. 52. So I'll call it 152 and a half. I was shooting for 153, but not too bad. Not too bad. That's pretty good. Alright, so now I'm going to let these mash. And that's what mashing is, just letting it stew. So you let it stew for, an hour. Some books say, hour and a half. I usually let it go almost 2 hours, believe it or not. Then I will heat up my sparging water and I'll start letting the wort come out, and you'll see how that works. But anyway, we'll see in a couple hours when this is done stewing. Mind you, it's been sitting in here. I'm trying to get a good picture for 2.5 hours now. And so we're going to try to get a reading on the thermometer. See if we can see it here. It's a little bit dark here. I'm not getting a good reading. Okay, so if y'all could see that. So after 2 hours, basically, I lost 2 degrees. So, 2 degrees is not going to make that big of a difference. And when you do it in a cooler like this, it's a beautiful mash tun. I mean, you could do it in a pot with a thermometer and keep turning the heat on and turning it off, trying to keep it at that perfect 152. But, for us home brewers, it's really all about simplicity. All right, so now we're going to see what the wort looks like when it comes out. Okay, now we're going to see what color the wort is when it comes out. Oh, look at that beautiful color, huh? So it's going to be a nice milky golden color. Nice. Oh, starting to get steamed up here. You get the idea, right? Okay, folks, so what I did was I heated up another 7.5 gallons of water up to 168 degrees after I had finished. Let me show you. I got about 5.5 gallons of wort out of the first round. Don't forget I used almost 24 pounds of grain. Here's my other 7 gallons of water that I put in here after that had drained out, and I'm stirring up the grains here in order to get as much sugar out of it as possible. Don't like to waste grains. They cost too much darn money. So what I'm going to do is, after I'm done stirring this up, which will be here in a few seconds, I'm just going to let the grain bed settle again, and then I'm going to see what kind of level I get as far as sugars in this second round here. Now most people would, instead of doing it the way I did and just put in the sparging water directly, is they would slowly put the sparging water in on top of the grain bed while it's draining. But I believe you get more conversion rate if it only makes sense. It's like cooking, right? If you put something on top of something that's already compressed, you're not going to get as much of the product out. So what I'm trying to do is get as much sugar out of this grain as I can, so I can have a highly fermentable wort. Yeah.
Hi, I just want to mention one thing about specific gravity. It's all correlation with how much alcohol you're going to have at the end. So if at the end of the fermentation process, say, I started out with a starting gravity of 1.052, and after the process, the fermentation process, I ended up with a gravity of 1.010. That would mean that my alcohol content in my beer would be about 5.5% alcohol and 177 calories per 12 ounces. Now, if I get my starting gravity up to, say, 1.60 after the boil, and I come out with the same final gravity of 1.010, then my alcohol content at the end of the fermentation process would be about 6.8% with 204 calories per 12 ounces of beer. So just remember that your starting gravity and your final gravity is all in relation to how much alcohol you're going to have in your beer and how much calories you're actually going to have in each glass of beer. So if you're looking for less calories in a beer, you might shoot for less of a starting gravity. If you want your calories to be about 150 per glass, I would shoot for like a 140, 1.040 gravity. And that would be considered kind of like a light beer, mediocre. If you wanted less, you could go less. So just remember that when you're creating your beer, how much gravity you want. And that is also is correlated with how much grain you use. For instance, I used almost 24 pounds of grain in this recipe, which is why I got such high gravity for the volume that I'm getting from the wort. So the less gravity you use, the less grains you use, the less gravity you're going to get. So there's calculators out there. I myself use brewcalcs.com, or I could give you links on the bottom of this video, and I also have them on my website, the Brewers Club. So just check me out on online there at the Brewers Club, or go to brewcalcs.com, and there's calculators there for everything. So with that said, let's continue this brew.
As you can see, I don't know if you can see it that good here. Let me see. I'm getting at my boil. It's starting to boil. Okay, now I'm going to wait for the hot break. You'll know the hot break. It'll start foaming. Waiting for the hot break. Okay, now we're seeing the hot break here. Blown away. Okay, so I add in my hops. I mark the time. Ounce and a half of Chinook hops. And there goes the hot break. Boom, swelling up, swelling up, swelling up, till it gets to a point that it just falls. And that's how you do that, folks. Okay. So I'm going to go away now, and in 30 minutes I'm going to add in my second hop addition. This hop addition was 1.5 ounces of Chinook hops. My next hop addition is going to be 1 ounce of Kent Goldings at 30 minutes. Okay folks, as you can see, it's settled down to a nice boil. It's been half an hour. So I'm going to do my second addition hops, which is the Kent Goldings. Yoo-hoo! Okay, now I'm going to put my third addition at 15 minutes. 15 more minutes, so it's like 15 minutes before the end of the boil, which is 45 minutes actually. So, see you then. I don't know if we can see this in here. Maybe not because of all the steam, but if you notice, you'll see these long strand of things that kind of look like, you know, worms of some type. But what it is, it's the protein in the wort that has actually broken away from the molecules. And so I'm going to now put in my last addition of hops, my Mount Hood hops, and I got 2 tablets, 2 Warflock tablets also that I put in there. Now what that does is it'll grab a hold of those protein molecules and actually take them out of the beer. It'll make the beer more clearer, and you know, everything will look nice. Okay, so that's my last 15 minutes of fame right there. This is my counterflow, let me go this way I guess, counterflow wort chiller. What happens is the water comes in from here, okay, and it goes down to here. And what happens is it goes along the bottom of this hose, and it circles all the way up, and it comes out there. See? It comes out there. Okay? So it's going from the bottom to the top, up and around and out. Now my wort is going to be coming from this pot right here, and it's going to be coming down to the tip of this copper, into this copper line, and it's going from the top of the hose down to the bottom of the hose, and coming out here and going into my fermenter downstairs. So that's how a counterflow works. Now I will show you this in action when I get done with my boil. We're done boiling. Now here's a little secret. The professionals do this as well, and people will try to sell you these contraptions on the internet that'll help your wort, and it's called whirlpooling. And what it does actually, and it's so simple, you just take your spoon, you put it in there, and you just stir it up. And you stir it up as fast as you can get it to go till it creates like a funnel in the bottom. So let's see how we can do it. As you can see, I got a pretty good funnel going there, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let this settle down now, and what's going to happen is all of the hops and the protein gunk and whatever is all going to settle in the middle of this pot. Okay? You'll see when I get done sucking it through my wort cooler, when it gets closer to the bottom, how everything is funneled to the middle of the pot. And that way you put your siphon hose right on the edge of the pot here, down in there, and you know, all the hops and everything will stay in the middle, so you won't get as much garbage in your wort. Okay folks, as you can see, it's just about stopped turning here, so all that stuff's in the bottom. And what I have here to siphon it out is this, my siphon hose with a socket to hold it to the bottom. Okay, now this wort is hot enough to where it's going to clean any kind of gunk that's on there. Well, there's no gunk on there, but any kind of bacteria, it will sanitize it because the water is still pretty hot. Still pretty hot, as you can see. So it's about 196 right now, the water temperature. 196. So from 196 going through my wort chiller here. Now I got my hose at the bottom there, and I'm going to connect it to the top of my wort chiller like so. Okay, there it is connected. Then what I do is at the bottom of this wort chiller, I take my 10-foot hose, this 10-foot hose here, right, and I connect it to the bottom where it comes out the wort chiller. Okay, now it's connected, all right, and I bring it all the way down here to my bucket, okay, that's sanitized and clean. Okay, so now before I start actually using this, I'm going to start my water to get the counterflow water going. Okay, so here I'm turning on my water. You can hear it, and you can see it's coming out the other end. So it's coming in here at the bottom, and it's going around this copper tube that's inside this hose, and it's cooling off the hose, the tube, I mean the wort as it goes through the copper tubing. Then what I do is I come down here, and here's the other end of the tube, and I'm going to get a suction on it and siphon it down. And there it goes. Okay, there's the flow. Okay, so now what temperature is it coming out, do you think? Well, let's see here. Try to get it so y'all can see it. So it's going from 193 degrees right down to 83.9 or so. Almost 84. But that's still cool enough to pitch yeast. You want your wort to cool down just as fast as it possibly can, because you want you go through all of this work to make beer just to have it ruined by some kind of wild yeast that infects it, makes it stank and everything else. So as soon as it's done, and I'm going to show you the whirlpool, what it did up there by putting all the hops and everything in the middle of the pan, or the pot rather, and it's a beautiful thing. So, you know, if you want to make a wort chiller like that, you can make one. Only costs about $55 to make one. I bought all the parts from the Home Depot. You can go to my website, that, you know, the Home Brewer Club, and you know, I got a video on how to make this wort chiller just the same way I did. So simple as that. It works fine. You've seen, you know, going from 193 all the way down to 83 degrees, 84 degrees. That's cooling it fast, bud, let me tell you. You can see right where that foam is there, right underneath there is the hops in the middle of the pot. Can you see that, everybody? See how that whirlpooling keeps everything right in the center? And, you know, you can buy these expensive whirlpoolies that you stick inside your wort and, you know, run it and it'll whirlpool it. But all you need is a spoon. Get out of here, B. All you need is a spoon and to stir it yourself. You don't need no expensive gadget. Okay? Now if you can see where my socket is down there, it's sucking in from the side of the pot there, so that none of that hops and everything that's in the middle is going to get into my beer. See, as you can see, the line is running pretty clear. Okay, it's still pretty hot. My fingers are kind of toasty right now, but as you can see, it works. Huh? Whirlpooling. Do it. The professionals do it. I've just learned. I've been brewing for a long time, and I just learned this about 3 or 4 weeks ago. This is my second time whirlpooling. It works great. I don't know if you can see that line right there that I made. That's 10 gallons. So I made 10 gallons of wort. Already cooled down, ready to pitch my yeast over here that I got all over the place not too long ago. And so I'm going to pitch it. So, in we go. Okay, so there we go. And she blows. Okay. Now that it was boiling, the boiling process sucks all the oxygen out of the wort, and you actually need oxygen for the wort to grow. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to splash it around in there so it'll give that yeast something to feed on. I'm going to do this for a little while. You can see I got quite a bit of foam there now, so I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my top on. This is my Spidell top. You know, in the reviews, I got read a lot of reviews rather, that these tops don't seal well. Well, excuse me, you hear that click? That sealed very well. Now if I try to put this airlock, watch what happens. I mean, it's sealed pretty damn good. Okay?
Pretty big airlock, ain't it? So, and there's actually a strap that goes around the bottom here that clamps. But I don't need it. You know, they say it doesn't seal, but, you know, I love this fermenter. I wish I had bought this years ago. Anyway, we'll come back in a little while, and we'll see if there's any action in this airlock.
Well, as it turned out, folks, the yeast didn't start working as fast as I thought it would. It took all night to start, really working really good. So I will come back. It's been a week almost now, so I'll come back when I'm done with the beer and it's bottled and I can drink it. So in the meantime, just visit my website, the Brewers Club, and that is the with a hyphen brewers.club. I did it that way because I thought it'd be easier to remember. And some of these things that you've seen on this video, the fermenter, the wort chiller, and all the stuff, you can buy that off my website, or you can make it yourself. It's totally up to you. I'm just here to help people make beer. So until then, we'll talk to you later. Hasta la vista.